Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Ukraine's government is undergoing another major wartime reshuffle, with Prime Minister Yulia Svyrydenko stepping down as President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says the country is changing its political strategy. The move raises questions about governance, relations with key allies, economic priorities, and Ukraine's long-term reform agenda as the war continues. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss what this reshuffle means for Ukraine is Yulia Sirko, a Ukrainian MP from the Voice Party. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello from Kiev. Thank you for hosting me.
President Zelenskyy says that Ukraine is, quote, changing its political strategy. Now, realistically, what does that mean in practical terms, and what change should Ukraine be expecting to see in the few months ahead?
First of all, it's very unexpected from the in the parliament, so it was a surprise for us as well. It happened yesterday on Sunday, so maybe President Zelenskyy prepared for that, but we didn't know. So for us, it's a surprise. We will have a parliamentary session next week. This week which is coming. And first, to change the prime minister, it means that they change the whole government. So the whole cabinet of ministers should be dismissed and voted, and this dismissal should be voted in the parliament, in Verkhovna Rada. So we expect that this dismissal and will be this week. But I'm doubt that we can appoint a new government this week, because it's not an easy task. We need to find at least 16 ministers, new ministers, and a new prime minister, which is not the case at this point of time. So I think Zelenskyy and Parliament has few candidates for the prime minister, and we'll see who will be the champion in this race. At this point of time, there is no new government and new candidates for the replacement. So let's see how it will go this week, because to dismiss the government, it should be 226 votes. I don't know if we have it at this point of time. We will have consultations today. We will have consultations, faction consultation, as well as parliamentary consultations, and we'll see the outcome. But as I understood, the decision made, and Prime Minister Svyrydenko will go and replace ambassador. Will go and serve as ambassador in the United States.
All right. Speaking of the United States, Svyrydenko was widely regarded as quite effective when it comes to strengthening Ukraine's economic ties with the U.S. Does that have anything to do with her future role as the ambassador to the United States? And what do you think is the reason for that dismissal? I know it does come as a surprise, but are there any speculations in the wind?
First of all, I think yes, because you saw last week that the relations with the United States changed. Ukraine and United States. We see that President Trump promised license for producing patriots and support for Ukraine. I think it's a very important moment when Ukraine should be very strong on U.S. Arena, and I think Svyrydenko, which is, as you said, rightly said, very welcome in the United States as well in Europe. She really was very effective in the negotiation of the mineral deal and many other deals with the United States. I think she will be effective in U.S. as well. So we need to strengthen our relations with the United States, and we need more effective executive candidate in the United States. So I mean that probably Svyrydenko will be more effective than the current ambassador to United States, Olga Stefanishina. So let's see. It's not a bad choice for the ambassador for United States, but the problem is how to find and replace Prime Minister in Ukraine and the whole government.
Right. Now, speaking of relations with allies countries, we're looking at a recent post made by President Zelenskyy that did stir a little bit of interest. Now, in his most recent post, he talked about European ballistic projects, also clear progress towards EU membership, but also, to quote the president himself, he's talking about economic, political, and cultural ties with Ukraine's neighboring countries, and saying that relations with Ukraine's neighboring country requires, quote, a new foundation, especially Poland and Hungary. Now, can you help us understand what that new foundation means and why Poland, why Hungary?
First of all, because Hungary under Orban was very negative against Ukraine, and we also saw recent developments with the historical interpretations between Poland and Ukraine. I think it's a time to reload these relations and just to put it on the right track with Hungary and with Poland, because with both countries we should look forward to the future and stop put historical issues as a main one. I think this is the right direction. So that's probably President Zelenskyy meant when he's saying about the new relations with Poland and Hungary, particularly because this is our neighbor countries. I think for all of us, it will be beneficial if we will be friends and will not start discussing historical issues as a main one. We have to look and develop future, and it's probably the right foundation and ground for the future relations with Hungary as well as with Poland. We see that the relations with Poland, so to say, turning back to the track. And we hope that it will be also new developments and positive developments in our relations. I think we have more in common and more in future than in history and in discussing historical pains and tragedies.
Right. And now going back to the dismissal of the Prime Minister, like you mentioned, this also means changing the entire government as well. There's various positions to fill, and even during normal times, it could be politically a monumental move. Now, we're also seeing Ukraine doing that during wartime as well. Do you think that this actually will risk creating a sort of uncertainty during this very crucial time and also create any vulnerabilities when it comes to the war front?
I don't think so. I think the Minister of Defense will stay as well. Maybe he is also one of the candidates for the Prime Minister. Minister Fedorov, who is now the Minister of Defense. I think the key ministers like Minister of Healthcare, Minister of Defense, Minister economy will stay. So the so to say the most important positions will be fulfilled with the current candidates who are now serving as a minister, and it will be, I think, at least 50% reshuffle in ministries. Honestly, it was a discussion about the reshuffling and dismissal of some ministers previously, like Minister of Education, Minister of the Reconstruction, etc., etc. But President Zelenskyy, all of a sudden decided to dismiss the whole government. But it will take time. I think it will take few months for new team and for new government to adjust and to work together. But I mean, in general, the most important position will be not influenced by any of the new candidates, and I think it's okay. So the parliament working 24/7, Office of President is working, so the stability, I think, will be preserved, and I don't expect any turbulences or any kind of big reshuffling in the government and in Ukrainian policies.
Right. Now, in the top of the interview, you mentioned that this comes as a surprise to a lot of Ukrainian officials as well, the announcement. And critics are saying that perhaps the balance in Ukraine has shifted far from the cabinet and parliament towards the presidential office, as we have seen multiple cabinet reshuffle since the full-scale invasion. Do you think that is a valid criticism, or do you think it's just a concentration of power is unavoidable consequences of leading a nation through wartime?
I think, first of all, concentration of power happened in 2019 when Zelenskyy and his party got more than 73% in the popular vote as a president and got a majority in the parliament. I think it started then, not with a war, martial law, or any other events. That's why actually we see that the government is reshuffled not by the parliament as it should be according to our constitution by the office of president and president who has majority in the parliament as well as in the government. So I think the critics have some point because I think check and balances are not there. So it should be, I think, first of all, because ruling party has not enough votes in the parliament. I think it should be a new coalition between parties and candidates from different parties in the government. But at this point of time, we will see how it will go through the parliament, new appointments and dismissal of the government. We are not in 2019 when Zelenskyy has absolute majority everywhere. I think the situation changed, and at some point of time it will be a need of coalition if the war prolong and if we will not able to conduct elections in next 2 years. So I think some kind of reshuffle in the parliament with a coalition and in the government will be needed.
And like I mentioned at the top of the interview, of course, we still don't know who's going to be the next prime minister. However, do you have any speculations, or are there any front-runner, a list of names that the Ukrainian politicians are looking towards to be most likely to take that position?
I think the top candidate at this point of time is ahead of the Naftogaz, Mr. Koretsky, who is serving as a CEO of the largest oil and gas company in Ukraine, and I think he is a top candidate for Zelenskyy. But I think it will be also consultation with the parliament because Zelenskyy needs 226 votes for the candidate, and I don't know if he will able to collect it in the parliament. So we'll see. Also, there is a candidate, Shmyhal, who was the prime minister before. So I think he is probably top 2, and top 3 is Minister of Defense Fedorov, who is also in a short list for the prime minister candidates of prime minister. But I think during this week we will see who is the final candidate. I don't expect that we can appoint prime minister or new government this week. I think it will take time for consultation, and then probably in a few weeks we will have it. But the former ex-government and ministers, they will act as acting ministers for the whole period before the new government will arrive. So there is no interruption in the executive power. So I think everybody will be on their places in August. I mean, new government.
All right, and whether this will be a smooth transition or with a little bit of turbulence, we'll have to see. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.